The gentlelady yields back. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Borndran, why did the Biden administration release Burkhoff?
Sir, Mr. Burkhoff was investigated by the U.S. Secret Service, not by the FBI. I don't know specifics. What I do know is that there was no swap or concession, and it's my understanding that his release...
So we didn't get anything for it?
Sir, to the best of my knowledge, there were no swap or concessions.
Why do you think I mean, you've said Russia, your statements today, formidable foe, foremost adversary, and the threat is current. Mr. Burkhoff has been described as an asset of supreme importance, one of the most connected, skilled, malicious hackers ever apprehended by U.S. authorities, and you don't know why we let him go?
No, sir, it's a Department of Justice question. The
But you're the director of cyber at the FBI in the Department of Justice. It's part of the Department of Justice, right?
Sir, yes, sir, it is, but obviously we're our own agency.
Now, look, I read your bio, and other than the degree from Michigan, it's pretty impressive. You've worked at FBI for like 20 years, right? You've held all kinds of positions. You're the director of cyber, and you can't tell me why we let the most notorious Russian hacker go, and you don't know what we got for it.
No, sir.
Were you consulted?
It's not an FBI investigation.
But you're the cyber man. Just Mr. Gates just talked about you're the key guy. You're the guy the administration sent here today to talk about cyber in lieu of in light of the fact that last week President Biden said the threat from Russia is imminent. You've confirmed that today. You said it is current, is as we speak, and you can't answer if it was a good idea or not, whether you were consulted?
Sir, I don't actually no, to your question, I was not consulted.
You were not consulted. Okay. You think it was a good idea?
Sir, I'm not in a position to comment on that.
The head of cyber is not in a position to comment. The guy in front of the Judiciary Committee at a time when the most formidable foe, our #1 enemy when it comes to cyber attacks, with the threat that's imminent and current, can't answer whether it was a good idea or not to release the most notorious Russian hacker we've ever caught.
Sir, it was a Department of Justice decision through the U.S. courts process, right? I would refer all the questions on Mr. Burkhoff.
Mr. Borndran, why'd you come? So far today, you've not been able to answer questions about Pegasus. You can't answer questions about sensitive investigative matters. Mr. Gates just went through the whole thing on Hunter Biden's laptop. You couldn't answer any questions about that. Can you answer questions about anything today? Can you answer questions about the school board situation, the spying on parents? You know anything about that?
Just to correct the record, sir, I actually did answer the questions to 2 representatives about NSO and Pegasus. To your point, I have not answered questions about the Hunter Biden laptop or about
the sensitive investigative matters.
I was just going to say that, if you let me finish, or about the sensitive investigative matter audit.
You know how many threat tags are on parents? How many of the threat tags that say EDU official have been assigned? How many cases now have that threat tag designation? Do you know anything about that?
Sir, no. All those questions should be referred to the Department of Justice.
Last week, in Mr. Biden's speech, he said this. I mean, just to emphasize, I can't figure this out. He said, when he's talking to business leaders, the magnitude of Russia's cyber capacity is fairly consequential, and it's coming, as we've talked about before, and as you've said as well. We'll help you, saying to the business leaders, we'll help you in any way to deal with cyber attacks. Do you think it helps the businesses who the president is asking to do everything you can to shore up your systems? Do you think it helps to release the most notorious Russian hacker we've ever apprehended?
Sir, I'm not going to answer any questions about Mr. Burkhoff's Secret Service case. As I said, the decision was made, through my understanding, through the ordinary course of action by the U.S. courts.
Well, you've agreed to give us briefings on other issues. Do you think there's someone at the FBI who can brief us on the Burkhoff situation?
Probably not, because it's not our case.
Do you think there's a chance Mr. Burkhoff's name was on the Hunter Biden laptop?
Sir, I have no idea.
No idea. And that says it all. That says it all, because we want someone in front of the committee, as Mr. Gates alluded to earlier. We want someone who can answer these questions about our constituents come up to me and talk to me about the school board situation. They come up and talk to me about the Hunter Biden laptop. They talk about all this. They're concerned with the fact that we had an FBI that has abused the FISA process. Looks like they've abused this sensitive investigative matter process. We've sent letters on it not to get a response. And by the way, we did send a letter to the Biden administration on the Burkhoff situation, ask them to respond by 5 o'clock yesterday. Got no response from them, and then the guy we send today, or the guy who comes in front of the committee today, can't answer any questions about that either. Seems to me that's that'd be the most important question that we'd want the witness, Mr. Chairman, to be able to answer, is the whole, why did the United States of America let go Alexei Burkhoff? Why did we release him, put him on a plane back to Moscow when this is the biggest cyber threat we face is from Russia? With that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you. Over here. Since 2015, we've seen foreign adversaries try to manipulate our elections and national politics with false and misleading information being shared online, and sometimes we've seen domestic politicians amplify that disinformation and media hosts. Using a mix of bots and organic posts on social media, Russia, China, and Iran have spread or amplified disinformation in a coordinated attempt to influence the outcome of both local and federal elections. Can you talk to us a little bit about why disinformation campaigns are so difficult to identify and take down, and how does the FBI work with public and private partners to neutralize disinformation campaigns?
Sure. So what you're primarily talking about is what we would term foreign influence. And, you know, I'm on the record already saying this, but I'm happy to go through it again. The FBI has very specific responsibilities and authorities. By design and necessity, the FBI is just one part of the solution amongst many other U.S. government partners. Important to note that we follow the actor and the activity. The problem is when an actor masquerades as someone he or she is not and amplifies disinformation through obviously a coordinated campaign. We worked really hard over the past couple years to build relationships with private sector partners so that we can transparently and in timely fashion take appropriate action in line, allow those companies to take appropriate action in line with their corporate terms of service. And we do all that, what we consider very mindfully, legal process as appropriate. And you know, I think just underscoring all of this is ensuring we're respecting the rights of possible U.S. persons, as Americans have had very broad rights to consume, create, and spread information. So that is our position on foreign influence as an organization.
Okay, yes, and of course, there's the First Amendment right to consume and spread information, but of course, we wish that our people in leadership positions would not spread disinformation quite so freely. I want to turn to something that's impacted some of the retirees in my community. Cyber fraud that has impacted some of our seniors. One couple in particular in my district was targeted by a cryptocurrency scam that ultimately defrauded them of almost $1 million in retirement funds. So it's a nationwide problem. According to the 2020 Elder Fraud Report, of the 791,790 complaints reported to the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center in 2020, about 28% of the total fraud losses were sustained by victims over the age of 60, resulting in approximately $1 billion in losses to seniors. So this is, you know, folks who've worked hard all their lives and tried to save for retirement. Can you tell us a little bit about how the FBI is working to protect seniors from internet scams and what we could do to help you in that quest?
Sure. I mean, the Department of Justice, for as long as I can remember, has had a very, very keen focus on what we would call elder care fraud and elder care abuse. And that's something that the FBI takes very, very seriously because they are amongst, like, children, our most vulnerable. The fraud schemes that are run against that population are very, very vast, very complicated, and unfortunately very lucrative for the criminals. So we have dedicated FBI agents, dedicated analysts. Department of Justice has dedicated prosecutors dedicated to this problem, and only this problem throughout the entirety of the country. In terms of what you can do to help us, it's all about awareness. Right, and I think that you know, all of us who have elderly people in our lives that may not understand the current trend of technology and the vulnerabilities that it poses are very, very important from a messaging perspective.
Thank you. In 2020, one of the counties that I represent was targeted by a ransomware attack, and the attackers extorted, I think it was $25,000 in ransom, and it took months of staff time and resources for the county government to recover from the attack. So we've seen these attacks against local governments, and obviously they have personal information of folks that could be at risk. But one of the wrinkles that we ran into was trying to get insurance coverage back. And I was wondering if the FBI has any information about working with these private insurance companies or whatever. There was questions about whether the FBI had negotiated with the ransom attackers, and I understand that's not the position of the FBI. And some insurance companies are requiring that they appoint a negotiator. So I was wondering if you had any recommendations with respect to that.
No, I don't, unfortunately. The insurance industry is a difficult conversation for the Bureau, and certainly from a cyber perspective. And so those relationships that really exist between generally retained counsel, third-party incident response firm, and then the insurance company. This is why exercising incident response plans are so important to companies, so that they know what their insurance company is or is not going to be looking for in that moment, and they can plan for that effectively. But to look back on as 20/20 hindsight and offer a recommendation, I really don't have one.